Hey, dear members of the Soul Stories family. Today we will bring you a romantic love story, so let's get started. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel so you don't miss any meaningful stories. Aubrey Carter stepped out of the bookstore, holding a paper bag with a few children's books she had bought for her classroom. At 29, she still carried the gentle demeanor of an elementary school teacher, her brown hair tied up high, her bright eyes tinged with a hint of melancholy. A beige sweater and a pale green scarf made her blend into the crowd, but her sharp gaze always caught the slightest irregularities. The bustling crowd hurried past, but a small figure standing quietly by an ice cream stall made her pause. A boy about 5 years old wore a dark green jacket and a woolen hat covering his hair. His wide eyes filled with panic as he looked around. He clutched the strap of his small backpack, lips pressed together as if trying not to cry. No one noticed him in the crowd. Aubrey approached, crouching to meet his eyes. "Hi, are you okay?" Her voice was soft, the way she soothed her students. The boy looked up, his teary brown eyes meeting hers, and shook his head slightly. I lost my dad," he whispered, his voice trembling. Aubrey's heart tightened. She smiled, placing a hand on his shoulder. "Don't worry, I'll help you find your dad. What's your name?" "Caleb," the boy answered, his voice small but clear, as if taught to respond politely. "Caleb Blackwood." "Hi, Caleb. I'm Aubrey. I'll take you somewhere safe, and your dad will come soon, okay?" She took his hand, feeling his small, cold fingers. Caleb nodded, gripping her hand like a lifeline. Aubrey led Caleb through the crowd, heading toward the mall's information desk. But it was closed early, so she decided to take him to a nearby police station a few streets away. On the way, she bought a chocolate cookie at a cafe to comfort him. "Do you like chocolate?" she asked, offering the cookie. Caleb gave a faint smile, nodded, and took a small bite. "Thank you," he said, his politeness surprising Aubrey. This boy was well raised. At the police station, a friendly officer took down the details. Aubrey sat with Caleb on a bench, telling him a story about a lost rabbit to ease his fear. Caleb listened, his eyes lighting up, even giggling when she described the rabbit hopping over a stream. "You tell stories like my teacher," Caleb said, and Aubrey laughed, ruffling his hair. "I am a teacher." Time passed, nearly an hour. Aubrey grew worried, wondering who Caleb's father was to let him stay lost so long. She looked at Caleb, now leaning against her shoulder, his eyelids heavy with exhaustion. She gently stroked his hair, a strange protective feeling rising within her. Suddenly, the station door swung open, a gust of cold air rushing in with a tall figure in a black suit. The man stepped inside, his sharp gaze scanning the room before locking onto Aubrey and Caleb. Aubrey's heart stopped. It was Gavin Blackwood. At 33, Gavin still had the striking, cold beauty from their college days, but now he carried the aura of a powerful CEO. His dark hair was neatly combed, his gray eyes deep, and his chiseled features seemed carved from stone. He wore an expensive black suit, a long coat draped over his arm, but what Aubrey couldn't tear her eyes from was his expression: shock, pain, and something unnameable. "Aubrey?" His voice was low, slightly hoarse, as if he couldn't believe his eyes. Caleb looked up, exclaiming, "Dad!" He ran to hug Gavin's leg, but Gavin's eyes remained fixed on Aubrey, as if the world had narrowed to just her. Aubrey stood, taking a deep breath to stay calm. 6 years had passed since they last met. 6 years since her heart shattered. She forced a smile, her voice cool. "Hello, Mr. Blackwood. Caleb's here, safe." Gavin knelt to hug Caleb, checking him from head to toe, his voice softening. "Are you okay?" "I'm sorry for making you wait." Caleb nodded, pointing at Aubrey. "Miss Aubrey found me, and she told stories. She's really nice, Dad." Gavin stood, looking at Aubrey. "Thank you," he said, his tone stiff, but his eyes told a different story: pain, regret, and a hint of anger. "I didn't expect to meet you like this." Aubrey clenched her fists, nails digging into her palms to hold back her emotions. "I just did what needed to be done," she replied evenly. "Caleb's a wonderful boy. You should be more careful." A spark flashed in Gavin's eyes as if her words struck an old wound. He opened his mouth to speak, but an officer approached, interrupting. "Mr. Blackwood, we need you to sign some paperwork." "The boy's fine. Thanks to this young lady. Gavin nodded, but before turning away, he looked at Aubrey again. You're still the same, he said, his voice so low it was almost a whisper. Aubrey didn't respond, only nodded slightly, her strained smile hiding her cracking heart. As Gavin signed the papers, Caleb tugged at Aubrey's hand. Will you visit me? He asked, his eyes shining. Aubrey gave a sad smile, ruffling his hair. If fate allows, I'll see you again. She led Caleb toward Gavin, avoiding his gaze. Thank you, Miss Carter, Gavin said one last time, his voice icy, but his eyes burning, as if trying to sear through her. Aubrey nodded, turned, and walked out of the station, not daring to look back. She feared that if she met his gaze any longer, every wall she'd built would collapse. Outside, night had fallen, the streetlights casting a hazy glow. Aubrey hugged herself, breathing deeply to push away the memories flooding back. The days they loved each other, the promises, and the day she left him forever. Why had fate brought them together again? And Caleb, who was that boy in Gavin's life? That autumn, the university campus was like a vibrant painting, with rows of blazing red maple trees stretching along the shimmering lake. Aubrey Carter, 23, entered the school library, clutching a thick book on children's literature. She wore a simple white sweater, her brown hair loosely tied, her bright eyes always tinged with a hint of insecurity due to her humble background. As a scholarship student, Aubrey often felt small among the wealthy students, but her dream of becoming a teacher kept her resolute. In a corner of the library, Gavin Blackwood, 27, sat reading economics materials, his sharp gaze softening whenever it landed on her. The sole heir of the Blackwood family, a real estate empire, he carried a cold exterior, but with Aubrey he was just Gavin, the guy who secretly slipped scribbled notes into her books, writing things like, "Stop studying, come get ice cream with me," with a smiley face. Aubrey would blush, pretend to grumble, but her eyes always sparkled with joy. Their love began in simple moments. One evening, the library closed late, and a torrential rain poured outside. Aubrey, without an umbrella, huddled under the awning, her sweater soaked. Gavin appeared in his old Jeep, opened the door and called, "Get in, bookworm, unless you want to turn into a fish." She laughed, dashing into the car, and in the warm space of the Jeep, they talked about their dreams. Aubrey shared her wish to open a small library for poor children, where they could read and dream big. Gavin, hands on the wheel, looked at her tenderly. "You'll be a light for those kids," he said, holding her hand, "and I'll be the one to build a home for that light." Under the rain, they parked on a quiet road. Gavin pulled her close, and their first kiss happened. Clumsy, sweet, with rain slipping through the window, wetting her hair. Aubrey felt the world shrink to just the two of them, her heart pounding as if it might burst. Gavin whispered in her ear, "I've never felt like this, Aubrey. You're everything to me." She leaned into his shoulder, smiling, believing their love would last forever. The months that followed were filled with colorful happiness. They studied together in the library, secretly passing handwritten notes under the table, and strolled by the campus lake, where Aubrey loved collecting red maple leaves to press into her books. Gavin, despite his busy family business projects, always made time for her. He patiently explained dry economic concepts when she needed help, just to see her nod, eyes lighting up with understanding. Aubrey loved how he listened, how he laughed heartily when she shared stories about the kids in her practice class, and how he secretly left hot coffee on her desk on cold winter mornings. Gavin loved Aubrey's sincerity, the way she blushed at his compliments, and the radiant look in her eyes when she talked about children. Once at a charity fair, Aubrey stood telling stories to kids, her voice as soothing as a lullaby. Gavin, watching from afar, gazed at her with adoration. Afterward, he pulled her to a quiet corner, hugging her tightly. "You know, I want the whole world to see how amazing you are," he said, kissing her forehead. Aubrey smiled, resting against his chest, feeling their heartbeats sink. They dreamed of a shared future, a small house by a lake, where Aubrey taught children and Gavin built community projects. but the class divide soon became an invisible wall. Gavin's family, especially his mother, Eleanor Blackwood, disapproved of Aubrey. At a gala at the Blackwood mansion that Gavin convinced her to attend, Aubrey felt the scornful stares of his friends and relatives. She wore a simple green dress, a gift from Gavin, but still felt out of place among the glamorous evening gowns. Eleanor, with her silver hair elegantly pinned and a voice sharp as ice, pulled Aubrey aside. "You're a smart girl, Aubrey," she said, her gaze piercing, "but you don't belong in this world. Don't let your ambitions hurt my son." Aubrey clenched her fists, forcing a strained smile, but those words cut like a knife. The real fracture came from Lila, Aubrey's high school friend. Lila, with her blonde hair and charming smile, had always been jealous of the attention Aubrey received. When she learned Gavin loved Aubrey, Lila turned venomous. She once scoffed when Aubrey shared details of their dates, saying, "You think a guy like Gavin would marry you? You're just a fling." Aubrey brushed it off, thinking Lila was joking, but Lila's jealousy crossed a line. One evening, Lila sent Gavin a series of expertly edited photos, Aubrey hugging a boy, her high school ex, at a cafe. Attached was a forged breakup letter in Aubrey's tone. "I'm sorry, Gavin. I can't continue. I realized I still love my ex. Don't look for me." Lila, knowing Aubrey's schedule, kept her busy with a fake study group to ensure she missed Gavin's calls. Gavin received the message at midnight in his luxurious apartment. He sat frozen on the sofa, staring blankly at the photos. His heart felt crushed. He recalled Aubrey's smile, the times she leaned on his shoulder, their promises of a future together. "No way," he muttered, but the photos were too real. He called her repeatedly, but she didn't answer. He slammed his fist on the table, shouting into the empty room, "Why, Aubrey? Why?" That night, he drank until he passed out, then burned the photos in the fireplace, the flames reflecting his bloodshot eyes. He believed Aubrey had betrayed him, that their love was an illusion. Meanwhile, Eleanor took action. Lila, secretly in contact with her, had leaked the breakup letter. One afternoon, Eleanor summoned Aubrey to the Blackwood mansion, where the cold atmosphere made her shiver despite her thick coat. In the vast living room, Eleanor sat in an armchair, facing Aubrey like a queen addressing a subject. "Have you seen the news?" she asked, sliding a newspaper toward Aubrey. The front page showed Gavin and Serena Whitmore, a banker's daughter, with the headline, "Perfect pair, Blackwood and Whitmore join forces?" Aubrey felt the blood drain from her face. She shook her head, voice trembling. "No, it can't be." Gavin didn't say anything. Her heart shattered, recalling the times he held her hand, promising to stay together. Eleanor smiled coldly. "My son was born to lead an empire, not to chase a girl like you. You'll ruin him, Aubrey. If you truly love him, let him go." Aubrey fought back tears, but the pain overwhelmed her. Eleanor handed her a paper and pen. "Write a breakup letter, say you're not worthy of him, then leave. I'll ensure you have funds to start over." "I don't want your money," Aubrey replied, voice choking. But Eleanor was unrelenting. "Then do it for Gavin. Do you want him disowned by his family, mocked by society for a girl with nothing?" Trembling, Aubrey took the pen. Each word tore at her soul. "Gavin, I'm sorry. I can't be with you. You deserve better. Don't look for me." Her tears fell, smudging the ink. But Eleanor nodded, satisfied. "Good. Now go." That night, Aubrey packed her dorm room, leaving behind the scarf Gavin had given her on the bed. She left the city, moving to a small town, cutting all contact. She believed Gavin had chosen Serena, that their love was a mistake. Meanwhile, Gavin, receiving the letter from his mother, punched the wall, blood dripping from his hand. "She doesn't love me," he muttered, voice breaking. "She never did." In the days that followed, the media buzzed with news of Gavin's engagement to Serena, a business arrangement between their families. Gavin, drowned in pain, didn't deny it, letting it consume him. Aubrey, far away, read the news and cried until she was spent, believing she'd done right by letting go. Their beautiful love, once as radiant as autumn, was now mere ashes in the cold wind. Still with us? Hit that subscribe button so you'll never miss another heart-touching story. After the unexpected encounter at the police station, Aubrey Carter stepped onto the street, the biting night air cutting through her thin sweater. She hugged herself, trying to shake off the image of Gavin Blackwood, the man she once loved more than herself, now a distant CEO with eyes cold as ice. But what pierced her heart most was Caleb, the sweet boy who called Gavin Dad. A painful theory formed in Aubrey's mind. Caleb was the son of Gavin and Serena Whitmore, the woman the press once dubbed his perfect fiancé. He has a family, she told herself bitterly. There's no place for me in his life anymore. At the penthouse atop Blackwood Enterprises, Gavin sat at his desk, city lights streaming through the large glass windows. A glass of whiskey sat untouched before him. The image of Aubrey at the police station haunted him, her gentle smile for Caleb, her soft but icy tone when she called him Mr. Blackwood. 6 years had passed, yet she was as beautiful as ever, but her eyes no longer belonged to him. Gavin clenched his fists, nails digging into his palms. She chose to leave, he muttered. She betrayed me. But deep down, he couldn't shake the feeling that something was amiss in their old story. The next morning, Gavin took Caleb for a routine checkup. In the hospital waiting room, Caleb scribbled on a piece of paper, chattering about Miss Aubrey. She bought me a cookie, Dad, and she told a story about a lost rabbit. Caleb beamed, his eyes sparkling. Gavin forced a faint smile, but his heart felt heavy. He didn't want to hear about Aubrey, didn't want to remember her, but Caleb kept mentioning her innocently. She's so nice, Dad. Don't you think she's like a teacher? Caleb asked, looking up at him. Gavin nodded absently, trying to maintain his cold demeanor. She just helped you, Caleb. Don't think too much of it. But his words didn't convince even himself. The image of Aubrey hugging Caleb, her voice soft as a lullaby, lingered in his mind. He wondered why, after everything, she still stirred his heart. A few days later, fate brought them face to face again. Aubrey was walking in a park near her home, holding a hot coffee to ward off the early winter chill. She paused by a bench, watching children play on the grass. Suddenly, she heard a shout. "Miss Aubrey!" Caleb, in his dark green jacket, ran toward her, his smile radiant. Gavin followed, stiff in his black suit, his gaze freezing when he saw her. "Caleb, slow down," Gavin said, his voice low but gentle with the boy. He looked at Aubrey, nodding slightly. "Miss Carter." "Mr. Blackwood," Aubrey replied evenly, hiding her racing heartbeat. She crouched down, smiling at Caleb. "Hey, little rabbit, are you doing okay?" Caleb laughed, retelling her rabbit story. Aubrey listened, nodding occasionally, but she felt Gavin's eyes fixed on her. His presence was like an electric current, making her want to stay and flee at once. "I have to go, Caleb," she said after a few minutes of standing. "Stay healthy, okay?" "I want to see you again." Caleb grabbed her hand, eyes shining. Aubrey gave a sad smile, ruffling his hair. "If fate allows, we'll meet again." She glanced at Gavin, nodded faintly, and turned away, her steps quickening to hide her emotions. Gavin watched her figure fade behind the trees. "She really likes you," he said to Caleb, keeping his tone steady. But inside, a storm was brewing. Why was she so gentle, yet so cold to him? And why couldn't he stop thinking about her? That night in her small apartment, Aubrey sat by the window, city lights flickering outside. She pulled an old scarf from a drawer, the Christmas gift Gavin gave her their last year of college. She pressed it to her cheek, tears falling silently. She thought she'd forgotten him, but the police station encounter and today's park meeting had shattered every wall she'd built. She wondered about Serena, about Caleb, about the life Gavin had built. "I don't belong there," she whispered, but her heart refused to listen. Across the city, Gavin sat in his dimly lit living room. On the table was Caleb's drawing, a house with 3 people, Caleb, Gavin, and a woman Caleb called Miss Aubrey. Gavin closed his eyes, trying to banish the image of Aubrey leaving the park. Her figure, gentle yet resolute, brought back the days they promised to stay together forever. He wondered, why does she still hurt me after everything she did? Winter crept into the city, bringing chilly winds that swept through the courtyard of Bright Futures Elementary School. Aubrey Carter stood before her classroom, wearing a beige sweater and a pale green scarf, guiding the children in drawing their dream house. At 29, she retained the gentle demeanor of a devoted teacher, her bright eyes always carrying a hint of unspoken melancholy, as if bearing an untold story. Today was the first day for a new student. Aubrey had received a notice from the office but didn't think much of it, assuming it was just a boy transferring from another district. She was reviewing the class roster when the door swung open, and a boy stepped in, his brown hair tousled, his round eyes sparkling. "Miss Aubrey!" he exclaimed, voice brimming with excitement, running straight to hug her legs. Aubrey froze, instantly recognizing him. Caleb Blackwood, the little rabbit she'd met at the mall. "Caleb!" Aubrey knelt down, stunned. "What are you doing here?" "I transferred," Caleb beamed, hugging her tightly. "I didn't know you taught here. I'm so happy." Aubrey smiled, her heart warming at his innocence. But then she looked up, and her heart stopped when she saw Gavin Blackwood standing in the doorway, rigid in his black suit. He, too, seemed stunned, his deep gray eyes locking onto hers. "Miss Carter," he said, his voice low but tinged with unease. "I didn't know you taught here." Aubrey stood, taking a deep breath to stay composed. "Mr. Blackwood," she replied evenly, masking her racing heartbeat. "Welcome to my class, Caleb." She turned to Caleb, ruffling his hair. "Little rabbit, go to your seat. I'll introduce you to the others." Caleb nodded, scampering to a desk, but not before turning back to grin at her. Gavin lingered for a few seconds, as if wanting to say something, but ultimately just nodded. "Thank you," he said, then turned to leave, though his gaze swept over Aubrey, carrying a flicker of emotion he couldn't hide. Aubrey watched his figure disappear down the hall, feeling as if fate was toying with her. Why this school? Why Caleb? Caleb quickly became Aubrey's favorite student. He was bright, polite, and especially loved her storytelling sessions. One afternoon, as she read a story about a bear lost in the forest, Caleb raised his hand and asked, "Miss, if the bear finds someone who loves it, it won't be lost anymore, right?" Aubrey nodded, her voice soft. "That's right, Caleb. Everyone needs someone to come home to." Caleb smiled, whispering, "I want you to be my Miss Sunshine forever." Caleb's innocent words touched Aubrey, but they also worried her. Each time Gavin came to pick Caleb up, she felt his gaze, cold but laden with meaning. He often stood at the school gate, watching her from afar, and memories of their college days flooded back. Nights when he held her hand under the moonlight, promises to never part. But then she recalled the breakup letter, the news of his engagement to Serena, and she reminded herself to keep her distance. Unaware of the undercurrents between them, Caleb talked about Aubrey every evening. "Miss Sunshine said I draw well, Dad," he said excitedly, holding up a scribbled picture of a house with 3 people. "This is you, me, and Miss Aubrey." Gavin looked at the drawing, his throat tightening. "She's just your teacher, Caleb," he said, but his eyes lingered on the picture, his heart in turmoil. One afternoon, the school held a family day event. Aubrey was busy coordinating, darting between groups. Caleb, playing a ring toss game, suddenly clutched his head, his face flushed. Aubrey instantly noticed he had a fever. She knelt down, touching his forehead, burning hot. Without hesitation, she scooped Caleb up, called Gavin, but got no answer, likely because he was in a meeting. "Don't be scared, little rabbit," she whispered, holding him close. "I'll take you to the doctor." Aubrey drove to the nearest hospital, Caleb cradled in her lap in the taxi's back seat, his breathing weak. At the emergency room, she sat by his bed, holding his small hand, softly singing a lullaby. "Sleep tight, little rabbit. The sun will smile on you." Her gentle voice soothed Caleb's fever. He smiled faintly, murmuring, "Miss Sunshine, I like you." Gavin arrived at the hospital nearly an hour later, his appearance rushed, hair slightly disheveled. He stepped into the room and froze at the sight. Aubrey sitting beside Caleb, holding his hand, her soft singing like a comforting balm. The hospital light illuminated her face, highlighting her bright but weary eyes. In that moment, Gavin felt his heart stir powerfully, as if time had rewound to the days they were together. "Miss Carter," Gavin called, his voice hoarse. Aubrey, startled, stopped singing and stood. "Mr. Blackwood," she replied evenly, avoiding his gaze. "Caleb had a high fever. The doctor said he needs rest. I tried calling you. Thank you, Gavin said, stepping to Caleb's bed. He stroked the boy's hair, then turned to Aubrey. You don't need to stay. I'll take it from here. Aubrey nodded, adjusting her scarf. Wishing Caleb a speedy recovery, she said sincerely. She turned to leave, but as she passed Gavin, his hand brushed hers as he reached for Caleb's jacket. Both froze, their eyes locking for a moment. Aubrey felt the warmth of his touch, and for a split second, she saw the Gavin from 6 years ago, the one who held her hand, promising forever. But she pulled away, hurrying out the door, her heart pounding. Gavin watched her disappear behind the door, a sense of loss surging within him. He sat beside Caleb, but his mind was elsewhere. The image of Aubrey singing a lullaby, holding Caleb like he was her own, cracked the icy wall around his heart. Aubrey Carter stood in a corner of the ballroom, feeling out of place among the glittering evening gowns and expensive suits. She wore a simple emerald green dress, her brown hair cascading loosely, her bright eyes wary. As a teacher invited to represent Bright Future School, she was unaccustomed to such lavish events. She was there to personally thank the sponsor of a scholarship for a former student, but her heart sank knowing Gavin Blackwood, the main benefactor, was present. Gavin stood across the room, conversing with business partners, his demeanor icy in a perfectly tailored black suit. His eyes occasionally scanned the crowd, as if searching for someone. When he spotted Aubrey, he froze, his deep gray eyes flashing with an emotion hard to name. But he quickly turned away, gripping his champagne flute tightly, masking his turmoil. The atmosphere shifted when a couple entered. The woman, tall and elegant in a striking red dress, drew every eye. It was Serena Whitmore, the banker's daughter once called Gavin's fiancée by the press. Beside her was a British man with blonde hair and a warm smile, holding her hand lovingly. Rumors of Serena and Gavin dissolved instantly. She had returned to her true fiancé. Aubrey, near the buffet table, felt her heart tighten watching Serena. She recalled the old news articles, photos of Gavin and Serena together, and the pain of believing he'd chosen another. She bowed her head, pretending to adjust napkins, but a gentle voice interrupted. Miss Carter, isn't it? Aubrey looked up, stunned to see Serena standing before her, a friendly smile but eyes full of meaning. I'm Serena Whitmore, she said, extending her hand. I've heard about you from a mutual friend, and from Caleb. Caleb, Aubrey echoed, her voice hesitant. She shook Serena's hand, her mind reeling. It's nice to meet you, but I'm not sure I understand. Serena smiled, gesturing for Aubrey to follow. Can I have a few minutes? I think we need to talk. They left the ballroom, stepping onto a breezy balcony where city lights stretched like a sea of stars. The cold air made Aubrey clutch her shawl, but curiosity kept her there. Serena leaned against the railing, looking at Aubrey with sincerity. I know you and Gavin were once very close, she began, her voice steady but weighty. And I know things ended badly. Aubrey stiffened, lips pressed tight. That's in the past, she said coldly, though her heart raced. I don't think we need to revisit it. But I think you deserve the truth, Serena interjected, her gaze firm. Gavin and I were never truly engaged. It was just a business arrangement between our families to strengthen ties. He didn't love me, never did. His heart has always belonged to you, even after you left. Aubrey felt the blood drain from her face. She shook her head, voice trembling. No, you're mistaken. He chose you. I saw the articles, the photos, and Caleb, he's your son with him, isn't he? Serena frowned, then let out a soft laugh, not mocking but surprised. Caleb? No, you're mistaken. Caleb is Gavin's adopted nephew, the son of his late sister who passed away years ago. Gavin took him in, but he's never been married, nor had a child with me or anyone else. Aubrey stood frozen, feeling the ground crumble beneath her. But why didn't he say anything? Why did he let me think? Her voice broke, tears welling up. Serena placed a hand on Aubrey's shoulder, her voice gentle but resolute. Because he thought you betrayed him. He received photos, you with another man, and a breakup letter. He believed you chose to leave him. But I suspect those weren't from you. Someone manipulated things, Aubrey, and I think you know who. Aubrey trembled, the image of Lila, her old friend, flashing in her mind. Lila's jealousy, her snide remarks, her strange silence when Aubrey was at her lowest. Lila, she whispered, voice choked. She could have done it. Serena nodded. I have no proof, but I saw how broken Gavin was after you left. I've never seen him look at anyone the way he looks at you, even now when he tries to act cold. He's still waiting for you, even if he won't admit it. Serena's words were a knife, both painful and liberating. Aubrey covered her face, tears falling silently. I didn't know. I thought he was happy with you, with Caleb. I left because I thought it was best for him. Serena took Aubrey's hand, her eyes full of empathy. You were wrong, but so was he for not seeking the truth. Talk to him, Aubrey. Don't let the past steal your chance. Aubrey wiped her tears, taking a deep breath to steady herself. Thank you, she said softly, sincerely. I need time to think. Serena smiled, patting her shoulder. Don't take too long. He deserves the truth, and so do you. She returned to the ballroom, leaving Aubrey alone on the balcony, her heart in turmoil. Inside, Gavin kept glancing at the balcony doors, suspicion gnawing at him as he saw Serena and Aubrey talking. He gripped his champagne flute, fighting the urge to rush out and ask what Serena had said. But deep down, he knew that conversation could change everything. Rain poured relentlessly, the sound of water pounding against Aubrey's apartment windows as if trying to drown out all else. She sat in an armchair, clutching the old scarf, a college gift from Gavin Blackwood, her eyes lost, brimming with unspoken questions. The conversation with Serena Whitmore at the charity gala the previous night haunted her. Serena had revealed painful truths. Gavin believed Aubrey betrayed him due to fake photos and a breakup letter. Caleb wasn't Gavin and Serena's son, but his adopted nephew, and their engagement was merely a family business arrangement, not love. These pieces were like lightning tearing through the darkness of misunderstanding, but they left Aubrey confused and wounded. Who sent the fake photos? Why didn't Gavin seek her out for the truth? And did he truly still love her, as Serena claimed? She stood to make tea to calm her racing mind when the doorbell rang, urgent and insistent. Aubrey frowned, glancing at the clock. Nearly midnight. Who would come at this hour? Her heart pounded as she approached the door, and when she opened it, she froze. Gavin stood there drenched from head to toe, his black hair plastered to his face, rainwater streaming down his angular features. His expensive black suit was crumpled, but his deep gray eyes burned with a mix of anger and desperation, as if battling himself. Gavin? Aubrey whispered, her voice trembling, gripping the doorframe. What are you doing here? Gavin didn't answer immediately. He stepped inside, bringing the chill and scent of rain. She closed the door, her hands shaking so much she nearly dropped the keys. He stood in the middle of her small living room, rainwater dripping onto the wooden floor. His gaze locked on her. Why, Aubrey? He asked, his voice hoarse and accusing. 6 years and the past was buried. I tried to move on for Caleb, for duty. So why did you show up? Why do you stand in front of me, making my heart ache like this? Do you know every time I see you, I see us 6 years ago, and that pain tears me apart? Aubrey felt her heart constrict. His words were a knife, reviving the pain she tried to suppress. Ache, she echoed, her voice choked, stepping back against the wall for balance. You think I meant to hurt you, Gavin? You think I wanted this? I didn't know Caleb was your nephew, didn't know you'd appear when I helped him. And now you blame me, when you believed I betrayed you, that I could leave you without you ever asking me the truth? Gavin clenched his fists, his eyes wavering between anger and hurt. You don't understand, Aubrey, he said, his voice trembling. I tried to forget you, to build a life without you. But then you appeared, with that smile, that voice, the way you care for Caleb. Everything I buried came rushing back. Do you know how much it hurt to think you loved someone else? To hold that letter, reading your words that you weren't worthy of me? That you wanted to leave? Aubrey shook her head, tears brimming. That letter, she whispered, her voice breaking. Serena said you thought I betrayed you because of a letter and photos. But Gavin, I didn't know about any photos. I never betrayed you. You think I could love someone else when you were my whole world? Gavin froze, his eyes filled with doubt. Didn't know about the photos, he repeated, his voice softening, as if he too was questioning. Lila sent them to me. Pictures of you hugging some guy, like you went back to an ex. And the letter? You wrote you weren't worthy, that you wanted me free. I called you, but you didn't answer. I went to your dorm, but you were gone. You left me, Aubrey. You made me believe you didn't need me. Lila! Her name stabbed Aubrey's heart. She recalled Lila's jealousy, her snide remarks, her eerie silence during Aubrey's darkest moments. She did it, Aubrey whispered, her voice shaking. Gavin, that letter. I didn't write it willingly. I was forced. Gavin frowned, stepping closer, his eyes piercing. Forced? Who forced you? Tell me, Aubrey. I need the truth. Aubrey took a deep breath, tears streaming down her cheeks, but her voice held steady. Your mother, she said, her eyes pained but unwavering. Eleanor called me to the mansion. She showed me an article about you and Serena, saying you were the perfect couple, that you needed someone like Serena to lead the family empire. She said I'd ruin your future, that if I loved you, I had to leave. Gavin stood rooted, as if slapped. My mother, he repeated, his voice breaking, hands trembling. What did she do? Aubrey hugged herself, her voice choked. She forced me to write the breakup letter, saying I wasn't worthy, that I wanted you free. I didn't want to, Gavin, but she said you'd lose everything if you stayed with me. And when I saw the article about you and Serena, I thought you'd chosen her. I thought you'd be happier without me, so I left. She looked up, her eyes full of hurt. I never betrayed you. I never loved anyone else. But after that letter, you got engaged to Serena. You made me believe I was a mistake, that our love meant nothing. Gavin shook his head, stepping closer, his eyes no longer angry, only filled with pain and regret. Serena and I weren't real, he said, his voice hoarse. After your letter, I fell apart. I was a shell, Aubrey. My mother and Serena's family arranged the engagement for business. I agreed because I thought you'd left me, because I had nothing left to lose. But you were wrong. You weren't a mistake. You were everything I ever wanted, ever loved, and still love. Aubrey's tears fell freely, blending with the sound of rain outside. She looked at him, seeing the Gavin from 6 years ago, the one who held her hand under the moonlight, promising forever. Then why didn't you find me? She asked, her voice breaking, as if the question had caged her for too long. Why did you trust Lila? Why didn't you ask me even once? Gavin bowed his head, rainwater dripping from his hair to the floor. Because I was a fool, he whispered, his voice faltering. Because I let pain blind me. Those photos, they were too real, like a knife in my heart. I thought you didn't love me, that you could leave me so easily. But every night I was dying, Aubrey. I didn't live, I just existed, trying for Caleb, but without you I was never whole. The truth dawned, like lightning piercing the night. Lila, with her malicious jealousy, had fabricated the photos to tear them apart. Eleanor, driven by ambition to protect the family empire, had manipulated Aubrey with the article and threats, and both, through mistrust, had let their love shatter. Aubrey stepped forward, standing mere steps from Gavin, her eyes both pained and yearning. Are you sure you understand why I left? She asked, her voice trembling. I left because I loved you, Gavin, because I thought it was the only way you'd be happy. Gavin could bear it no longer. He closed the distance between them in a single stride. I'm sorry, he whispered, his voice breaking amid the rain. I'm sorry for not trusting you, for letting you go. I never stopped loving you, Aubrey. Not a single day. He raised his hand, gently touching her cheek, his warm fingers wiping away tears mixed with rain on her face. Aubrey trembled under his touch, her eyes searching his. I never stopped loving you either, she whispered, her voice choked. I tried, but my heart always belonged to you. They stood there, a breath apart, the rain like a soundtrack to their fated moment. Gavin leaned down slowly, as if afraid to shatter a dream. His lips met hers, gentle yet fierce. a kiss carrying 6 years of longing, pain, and undying love. Aubrey kissed him back, her hands clutching his soaked jacket, rain seeping through her sweater. But she didn't care. The kiss erased the 6 years of distance, a promise that this time they wouldn't lose each other. The rain still fell, but it no longer felt cold. It was as if it washed away the misunderstandings, the pain, leaving two broken hearts that had now found each other in an endless kiss. Loving the story so far? Make sure to subscribe and stay tuned for more unforgettable moments. The winter sun cast pale rays through the trees, glinting off the lake beside Gavin Blackwood's suburban house. Aubrey Carter sat in the passenger seat of the black SUV, gripping the seatbelt, her eyes flickering between excitement and nervousness. Beside her, Gavin drove, his demeanor calm but his deep gray eyes occasionally glancing at her, as if ensuring she was still there. In the back seat, 5-year-old Caleb Blackwood hummed a children's song, his small legs swinging. "Miss Sunshine, where are we going today?" Caleb asked, his voice bright. Aubrey turned, smiling. "I don't know, little rabbit. Ask your dad." She glanced at Gavin, her eyes tinged with curiosity. After that fateful rainy night when they unraveled their misunderstandings, Gavin had grown gentler, but today he was secretive, only saying he wanted to take her and Caleb to a special place. Gavin gave a small smile, his voice warm. "Be patient, both of you. We're almost there." He turned onto a narrow road, and a wooden house came into view. Aubrey froze, her breath catching. She recognized it, the suburban house Gavin had taken her to during their last summer of college. They'd sat on the porch dreaming of a shared future, and she'd lounged in an old armchair, reading while he made coffee. "Gavin," she whispered, her voice trembling, "why did you bring me here?" Gavin parked, turning to her. "Come inside, Aubrey. I want you to see something." He opened the door, lifted Caleb out, and took Aubrey's hand, leading her inside. Caleb, thrilled, ran ahead, squealing when he saw a swing in the backyard. "Dad, Miss Aubrey, there's a swing." Stepping inside, Aubrey felt like she'd entered a dream. The interior was unchanged from 5 years ago. A wooden bookshelf filled with novels she loved, an old easel by the window with her sketch drawings, and the teal armchair where she'd curled up reading. The faint scent of wood and coffee lingered, as if time had stood still. She touched the bookshelf, her fingers brushing Anne of Green Gables, which Gavin had teased as too sappy but bought for her anyway. You kept all this?" she asked, her voice choked. Gavin stood behind her, his eyes tender but meaningful. "I couldn't throw away anything tied to you," he said, his voice low. "After you left, I bought this house. I thought, if you ever came back, I wanted you to see I never gave up on us." Aubrey turned, tears shimmering in her eyes. "Gavin, I didn't know. I didn't know you did all this." She moved to the armchair, sitting down, the familiarity like an embrace. Caleb ran in from the backyard, holding a red leaf, and climbed onto her lap. "Miss Sunshine, this house is so cool. I want to stay here forever." He beamed, hugging her. Gavin knelt before Aubrey and Caleb, his gaze locked on her. "Aubrey," he began, his voice trembling but resolute. "6 years ago, I lost you because I wasn't strong enough, didn't trust enough. But now I know without you, I'm just a man living without a soul. I don't promise you the world, but I promise to spend my life loving and protecting you. And Caleb." He pulled a small velvet box from his pocket, revealing a simple silver ring with a tiny emerald, the ring he'd bought their final college year, planning to propose after graduation. "I kept it in my desk for 6 years," he said, his voice hoarse, "because I always hoped you'd come back. Aubrey Carter, will you be my wife? My and Caleb's light? Forever?" Aubrey covered her face, tears streaming. She looked at Gavin, seeing the boy who held her hand in the rain, promising forever. Then she looked at Caleb, his sparkling eyes waiting for her answer. "Miss Sunshine, will you stay with me and Dad forever?" Caleb asked, his voice clear. Aubrey laughed through her tears, pulling Caleb close. "I will," she whispered, looking at Gavin. "I will, Gavin. I want to be with you, with Caleb, forever." Gavin slipped the ring onto her finger, his hands trembling. He pulled her and Caleb into a tight embrace, their laughter filling the warm room. Caleb cheered. "Miss Sunshine's my mom now, right, Dad?" Gavin smiled, ruffling his hair. "That's right, buddy. If you're okay with it, she's your mom now, our light." They sat there, huddled on the old armchair, winter sunlight streaming through the window, glinting off Aubrey's ring. Gavin shared how he'd come to the house alone, sitting on the porch imagining her there. Aubrey admitted she'd dreamed of this house, thinking it was a lost memory. Caleb, uninterested in adult stories, ran to the yard for more red leaves, but kept glancing back, as if ensuring they were still there. The afternoon passed with stories and laughter. Gavin made coffee, Aubrey read Caleb a story, and they drew a family picture on the old easel, a house by the lake with 3 people holding hands. As the sun set, they stepped onto the porch, watching the lake reflect the twilight. Aubrey leaned against Gavin's shoulder, Caleb between them, clutching a red leaf like treasure. "We'll be happy, won't we?" Aubrey asked, her voice soft but hopeful. Gavin kissed her forehead, his eyes shining. "We lost 6 years, but I'll spend my life making it up to you. I promise." Caleb looked up, grinning. "Can we get a dog too?" All 3 burst into laughter, their voices echoing in the peaceful air, a testament that they'd found each other, and this time, nothing could tear them apart. Spring arrived, bringing cool breezes and gentle sunlight filtering through the vibrant red maple trees by the lake. The lush green lawn was adorned simply yet elegantly. White silk ribbons fluttering in the breeze, glass jars with wildflowers on wooden tables, and a small floral arch as the ceremony's centerpiece. This was Gavin Blackwood and Aubrey Carter's wedding. Not the extravagant affair high society expected from a CEO like Gavin, but warm and heartfelt, true to their hearts. In the temporary bridal tent, Aubrey stood before a mirror, her trembling hands adjusting a delicate veil. Her white wedding dress was simple, hugging her slender frame, with a soft train grazing the ground. Her brown hair was loosely braided, adorned with tiny white flowers, making her look like a figure from a fairy tale. Serena Whitmore, now an unexpected close friend, stood behind her, smiling through the mirror. "You look like a muse, Aubrey," Serena said warmly. "Gavin's going to faint when he sees you, I bet." Aubrey laughed, but her eyes shimmered with tears. "Thank you, Serena. If it weren't for you, we might still be lost in misunderstandings." She took Serena's hand, her gaze sincere. Serena, in an elegant emerald dress, squeezed her hand gently. "I just gave a little push. You two were always meant to be, long ago." Nearby, Gavin stood by the lake, adjusting his black tie, the stoic CEO facade melting into the nervous anticipation of a man about to marry the love of his life. 5-year-old Caleb Blackwood stood beside him, also in a matching black suit, tugging at his tie and whining, "Dad, this is itchy." Gavin knelt, fixing the tie, his voice warm. "You're the best man, so you've got to be a little serious. Today's a big day." Caleb pouted, then grinned. "Dad, today Miss Sunshine becomes my mom, right? I want to call her Mom now." Gavin ruffled his hair, his deep gray eyes shining. "That's right, buddy. From today, we're a family." He hugged Caleb, happiness surging, tinged with a trace of fear. 6 years of pain had passed, but he still worried this was a dream, that Aubrey might vanish again. He took a deep breath, vowing this time nothing would tear them apart. The ceremony began as the sunset gilded the lake. About 30 guests, college friends of Aubrey's, Gavin's close colleagues, and Serena with her British fiancé, sat on wooden chairs, smiling in anticipation. A gentle violin melody played, and Aubrey emerged, holding a bouquet of wildflowers, her eyes locked on Gavin. He stood under the floral arch, heart pounding, feeling the world narrow to just her. Her white dress glowed in the sunlight, and her smile made him forget every prepared word. As she approached, Gavin took her hand, whispering, "You're so beautiful, Aubrey. I can't believe I deserve this moment." Aubrey squeezed his hand, eyes sparkling. "We deserve this, Gavin, after everything we've overcome." They stood facing each other, hand in hand, and Caleb, the junior best man, drew laughs when he held up the ring box too soon, shouting, "Miss Sunshine, put on the ring." The guests roared, and Aubrey bent to kiss Caleb's cheek, making him blush and scamper back to Gavin. Their vows were simple but profound. Gavin looked into Aubrey's eyes, his voice trembling but resolute. Aubrey, I lost you once because I wasn't strong enough. But now I promise, even if the world turns against us, I'll love, protect, and trust you. You're my light, forever. Aubrey, tears streaming, replied, Gavin, you're my home, where I'll always return. I promise to stand by you and Caleb through every storm, forever. As they exchanged rings, sunlight glinted off the silver band on Aubrey's finger, its emerald sparkling like a reminder of their enduring love. Caleb clapped, shouting, Kiss, kiss! Gavin laughed, pulling Aubrey into a sweet, deep kiss, as if to etch the moment into eternity. Applause and laughter erupted, Serena wiping tears, whispering to her fiancé, finally they found each other. The reception unfolded outdoors, with wooden tables draped in white linen, paper lanterns hung in trees, and a buffet of simple yet delicious dishes, grilled bread, fruit salads, and a chocolate wedding cake Caleb had insisted on. Caleb ran around, showing off his grown-up tie, even dragging Serena to dance, making her laugh uncontrollably. Gavin and Aubrey cut the cake, playfully smearing frosting on each other's faces, prompting Caleb to giggle and demand to frost Mom, too. As night fell, lanterns and moonlight transformed the lawn into a fairy tale world. Gavin pulled Aubrey to dance, and though she blushed at dancing publicly, he whispered, Just look at me, my love. It's only us. They twirled, laughing like college students, forgetting the painful years. As the reception wound down, Serena stood, raising a glass of wine. I'm not good with sappy speeches, she began, sparking laughter. But I toast Gavin and Aubrey, who overcame darkness to find each other's light. And Caleb, the best kid ever, thank you for being their bridge. Caleb, beside Aubrey, puffed up proudly, making everyone laugh. Gavin held Aubrey's hand under the table, his eyes shining with gratitude. They clinked glasses, the sound mingling with the soft lake breeze. Time passed, and Gavin and Aubrey's suburban house became a true home. They moved in right after the wedding, filling it with love, art, and laughter. Aubrey began writing children's books, inspired by Caleb and the stories she told him. She spent mornings in the art room, sunlight streaming through the window, writing about rabbits, bears, and magical adventures. Her first book, The Lost Rabbit, was published 6 months later, dedicated to Caleb, my little rabbit, and Gavin, who found my light. The book became a hit, and Caleb, proudly showing it to friends, declared, My mom writes the best books in the world. Gavin, still running Blackwood Enterprises, learned to balance work and family. He left the office early to take Caleb to soccer, read bedtime stories, and spend quiet evenings with Aubrey. He even tried painting with her and Caleb, though his distorted shapes sparked family laughter. I'm a CEO, not an artist, he'd grumble playfully, but his eyes lit up, seeing Aubrey and Caleb doubled over. Their home brimmed with mementos, Caleb's scribbled drawings, Aubrey's books, the old college scarf, and the teal armchair where the three often gathered. Aubrey became integral to Caleb's life. She helped with homework, taught him to garden, and told bedtime fairy tales. Caleb, now naturally calling her Mom, often hugged her, saying, You're my Miss Sunshine, right? Aubrey always kissed his forehead, replying, Forever, little rabbit. Gavin, watching Aubrey love Caleb, felt his heart overflow. He'd feared the boy, his adopted nephew, would never have a complete family after losing his birth mother. But Aubrey brought light, not just to him, but to Caleb. One night, as Caleb dozed on the armchair, Gavin pulled Aubrey close, whispering, Thank you for giving us a home. Aubrey leaned into him, smiling, Thank you for giving me a family. One autumn evening, as red maple leaves blanketed the yard, the three gathered in the living room. Aubrey sat on the armchair, Caleb curled in her lap, eyes heavy with sleep. Gavin sat beside, his hand entwined with hers, her ring glinting under the lamp. Caleb, voice drowsy, murmured, Mom, tell a fairy tale. Aubrey smiled, stroking his hair. All right, little rabbit. She began, her voice soft as a lullaby. Once, a little prince was lost in a cold forest, afraid he'd always be alone. But a girl of light appeared, with a smile warm as the sun. She took his hand, leading him to a house by a lake, where a strong man waited. They became a family, living happily ever after, never parting. Caleb smiled, eyes closing. "Like us," he whispered, drifting off, still clutching his teddy bear. Aubrey kissed his forehead, tears shining with joy. Gavin pulled her close, whispering, "You told it right. We found each other, and I won't lose you again." They tucked Caleb into bed, then stepped onto the porch. Moonlight shimmered on the lake, and rustling leaves played a peaceful tune. Aubrey leaned against Gavin, their hands entwined, her ring glowing in the moonlight. "Did you ever think we'd have this day?" she asked, her voice soft but hopeful. Gavin kissed her hair, eyes radiant. "I always hoped, but didn't dare dream. Now I know one thing. I'll spend my life keeping this light." They stood, savoring the moment, grateful for the second chance fate granted. Suddenly, Caleb ran out, still clutching his teddy bear, eyes bright despite just waking. "Dad, Mom, we're a team, right?" he shouted, diving into their arms. Gavin and Aubrey laughed, hugging him tightly, the three forming a warm circle under the moonlight. "That's right, little rabbit," Aubrey said, kissing Caleb's cheek. "We're a team. Forever." The story closes with the small family on the porch, their laughter echoing into the night. Past wounds had healed, their love stronger than ever, and the future ahead glowed as brightly as the light Aubrey brought to Gavin and Caleb. They knew, whatever challenges life brought, they'd hold hands as a team, forever.